Hi everyone, happy Wednesday. I wanted to do a video blog on just what therapy is. I think that a lot of people don't know what therapy is and they assume that it's this really scary process that they probably want to avoid. Um, and I think that some people, when they finally try it out, are pleasantly surprised that it's actually pretty helpful. But just the unknown of therapy, I think, keeps people away. So I wanted to talk a little bit about what therapy is and what the therapy process looks like with me as a therapist. Um, every therapist does therapy different, and they have different modalities that they go by based on what they believe therapy is. So I think that it's important that you align what your values are and your goals for therapy are, and you align them with what the therapist does as well. So I tend to believe that our past affects our future. And I think that it's pretty difficult to not consider how the past played a part in who we are today. I think that a lot of people try to think that, the past is done. I don't want to think about it. There were some things that maybe didn't go so well. And so let's just kind of leave the past in the past and move forward. And I think that that's absolutely important to do. But I think that we also still have to give it a little bit of consideration and how it played a part in who we are today and how we're affected today. Because I think that a lot of um, experiences from our past can really take a hold on us and keep us kind of stuck in the past, even if we don't want to be. So I think that it's important to consider the past and how it's affected you. And so I tend to bring that into the therapy process a little bit. And I think that a lot of people say, like, I don't want to talk about my childhood. There was nothing bad about it, or maybe it was so bad that I just really don't want to go there. And I think that that shows a lot about what impact the past has on us. And so I definitely consider it in the process. So that would be kind of like the modality that I kind of go by as a therapist, but I also feel like living in the present is so important. So when my clients come in every week, I ask them how their week was and I see where they're at right now in the moment because I think that, that's important too. And so, yes, the past is important at a certain point, but I also feel like it's really important to take into consideration what you're going through in the present moment and how maybe what you've experienced in the past is affecting you in the present moment, because that's also really important. If you're living in the present, it's super important to make sure that you can enjoy your life in the present moment and that the past isn't pulling you back too much. So I might sound like I'm contradicting myself a little bit, but my point is that I really do take into consideration both the past and the present. And mostly when I say that I take the past into consideration, it's how is it affecting you today? So I really do feel like the present is important as well. So that's a little bit about like my modality, and that's kind of the term that they use for different therapy processes. So that's a little background for you if that's helpful. So yeah, I feel like knowing what your therapist tends to think is important and how that aligns with your goals for therapy is really important. So there's that. But I also wanted to say that I think a lot of people tend to avoid therapy because it's just too painful to think about the things that have happened in the past. And a lot of people feel like if they can just move on and forget what happened, they can just live a happy life. And I totally get that. It's not fun to feel pain. It's not fun to think about bad things that have happened in our past, but I think that it's absolutely important to take those into consideration and see if they are affecting us in the present moment, because a lot of times they do. So I think that, yeah, absolutely, the pain that you think might come is so just unbearable and you don't want to go there. And I get that, but I think that it's so important to take into consideration the benefits that could come also from kind of facing that pain and not letting it have so much power in your life that you're afraid to go there. I think that saying, you know what, I'm going to go into my past and I'm going to face it, and then I'm going to be able to move on with my life and I can leave everything in the past. And I think that's super important. But I think that, avoiding it definitely is not very beneficial as well, because a lot of people find that when they avoid the past, it still comes back to haunt them in some way or the other. Just because we're not meant to hold on to things that have been hard for us without facing them. And our bodies have a really hard time, I guess, trying to forget the past without being affected. Because a lot of times we are affected by the things that have happened. And so taking that into consideration and saying, you know what, I'm going to take the bull by the horns and say that I am going to face my past and it's not going to have power over me. So a little bit about what that process would look like. So usually people come in and they're experiencing different symptoms or side effects from maybe an event that they've experienced, or just like life not going the way that they want to in general. So like overall just dissatisfaction with life, unhappiness in a relationship, relationship issues with a family member, a friend. It just really doesn't seem like, there's times that you can connect with people and feel safe with people. People come in because they're experiencing really bad anxiety, depression, sadness. They're experiencing, overwhelming amounts of stress. They don't know how to deal with them. So usually that's why people come into therapy, because of what is being presented in their everyday life and how they're being affected every day. So that is why people tend to come into therapy. But then it seems like, as we're talking about things, that things from their past do come up, and they're things that maybe still feel unresolved. Maybe they didn't give themselves time to grieve completely the loss of a relationship. Maybe they got divorced and they still are mourning the fact that they lost that person in their life. I think that a lot of people think that grief comes only with death, and grief can come with just any loss in general. So I think that it's important that we consider the fact that, we still can grieve even if it wasn't a death. And so I think a lot of people feel good about that. The fact that they can still grieve, the fact that, maybe something bad happened and they lost a relationship, and, maybe they felt like it was their fault and so they don't deserve to grieve the relationship, but you absolutely do. If you have any loss in your life, you absolutely deserve to grieve. And a lot of people don't give themselves that opportunity. So people come in and we talk about how they're being affected, right, with all of those things that I just mentioned. And I think it's important to consider what they can do in the everyday life to kind of face those things that they're experiencing. Maybe if they're having an overwhelming amount of stress and it's not allowing them to get the sleep that they need, and it's affecting their relationships and it's affecting their work, and, or you're having depression and it's so hard to get out of bed and you find yourself just wanting to, be in your house all day and seclude yourself, and being around other relationships is just so hard for you. It's important that in therapy we can find the tools that work for you, and the coping skills that work for you to help you figure out how you can cope with those things on an everyday basis, because they are absolutely affecting you and they're affecting your ability to live a happy life. So, that's really important. And so after those coping skills are developed, and that may take a little bit of time, that may be super easy for you to develop those. But I would say after those are developed, then maybe we'll go into the past. Maybe we'll figure out what these things are stemming from. Did you have a overcritical parent that made you super worried about being the best that you could and constantly causing stress in your life, to be a perfectionist? making sure that you have the skills to deal with these things and then moving forward. But also understanding how those things did affect you so that you don't often feel like, this is just your fault and this came out of nowhere. It's sometimes helpful to kind of know that there was a root of something and knowing where it came from and making that connection. And sometimes that can be so relieving for you to know that it isn't your fault and to know that, maybe these things are coming out of an experience that you had and you didn't choose to have that experience, but you are still being affected. So I think that connection piece is really helpful for some people, to know kind of the root and to know that, this isn't just them making this up. Because sometimes I think we can make judgments on ourselves and we can feel really crazy, and feel like, man, am I just losing it because I'm feeling this way? And having that connection piece of where it may have come from is really helpful. So finding that connection piece is important after you develop the skills. And then from there, kind of saying like, okay, what do you need for the future? What do you need to continue moving forward? What do you need to build a new life for you? I think that this can be the hardest because we get so stuck in what we felt before. And so knowing that we can choose what we want out of our life and we can choose to meet those goals and we have a choice and we have the power in the matter, I think is so huge. And so figuring out how do you move forward in the future and live this happy life, this life that you dream of, because it is so important that you get to live the life that you want and know that you have power over that. So I think a lot of it is coping skills. It's coming in and it's talking to somebody who's objective, and someone who maybe can provide you some insight into things that maybe you didn't realize before or that family members and friends can offer you before because they're just too close to the situation. And I think just something that I've heard a lot of people say and something that I can relate to because I did my own therapy experience is just having someone listen to you, and having someone not make judgments on you. And I think that can be so huge because sometimes it's not easy for our family and friends to not make judgments on our life. And so I think to have somebody who, really cares about you and really just wants to listen to you and give you that time is so important. And that's something that a lot of my clients have shared with me, that it's just been the biggest help to just be listened to, and not be interrupted and, not be told that they're wrong and not be told how they should live their life, but purely just be listened to. So I think that that's a huge part of the therapy process as well. Me as a specific therapist tend to ask you what you need out of the therapy process. What are your goals? What are some things that you would like to meet? Because it is your process, and I truly do want to make it your process. I don't think that it's my job to figure out where you should go or how you should go there, or, it's not my job to say that anything in your life even needs to be fixed. That's up to you. So my goal is really just to support you through this process, support you through maybe these changes, support you through a difficult time in your life when you just need to be heard, when you just need to feel the biggest support because you've never felt that before. So that's my goal as a therapist. And I hope that this is helpful for you to understand what the therapy process looks like a little bit more. If you have any questions, definitely feel free to ask me. I am happy to answer any questions about what the therapy process may look like. If you have hesitations, maybe you've had a really bad therapy experience in the past and that has just thrown you off. I can say for myself, it took me a few times of going to therapy to find the right therapist for me. And I really encourage all of my clients to figure out if I am the right fit for them and if we're a good fit together and if we can build a good relationship that has trust, because that is really important. So I think taking that into consideration and saying, who's the right therapist for me, and finding that and having this journey that you can go on that can bring you healing and strength for the future. And I hope that this is encouraging to you and that the therapy process doesn't seem so daunting anymore. I think I really like to take my clients process at the pace that they want it to go. If you push someone to go somewhere and they're not ready, then it's not going to be the process that they need. So it's really about me supporting you. And again, I hope this was super helpful. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me, send me an email. You can go on my website, send me something on my contact form. You can connect on Facebook. I have so many ways that we can connect, and that's intentional. I love to connect with you, even if you're not a client. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them, and I hope that this has helped you to better understand what the therapy process looks like. Have a good day.